Hello, BookTube. Matthew at Mayberry Book Club and I have been reading Lonesome Dove for the month of June. We've been reading it together, Matthew's first time. Uh, Not only as part of our little book club of two, which is an enormous amount of fun, but also as part of June on the Range, a new BookTube event created by Michael K. Vaughan that's designed to celebrate Westerns, the Western genre of fiction. Which really went out with a bang, I think, with this novel. There have been lots and lots of other Westerns since then, but this is the last one. This won a Pulitzer Prize. I'm pretty sure it's the last Western that will ever win a Pulitzer Prize. I think it's probably the last Western that we'll see in our lifetimes that's a genuinely great book. I would argue that this is a great American novel. And I have been very pleased in the last three or 4 weeks and how many of you have been contacting me and saying that it's been sitting on your shelf forever and ever, you've been intimidated by it, or you've always wanted to put it off, you haven't thought it was the right time, you thought maybe it was oversold, and then you started reading it and realized, oh no, no, this isn't oversold. This is actually great. This is not just lower G great, where, oh, this Apple Snapple was great, but great with a capital G. It's been very gratifying to see that. It's very gratifying to see that Matthew feels the same way. This, as we've mentioned sorry about this paperback. It's inconvenient. The main character is lassoing the name of the book. It's just, is this for children? Is that why you made that decision? I don't know. It's a big book, but as I told over and over again, I was telling people in May, you're going to want it to be longer. No matter how long it is, you're going to want it to be longer. You can't say that about many big books. This is a story of two former Texas Rangers at the end of the era of the Old West, who they've mustered out of service. They are running a dirt-poor cattle ranch on the Rio Grande, when suddenly a colleague of theirs rides into the ranch and tells them there's plenty of great pasture land, a killing to be made, a real adventure to be had by men of metal up in Montana. A huge, huge cattle drive from southern Texas. But the two Texas Rangers, Captain Call and Captain McCrae, decide to do it. Mainly Captain Call. He is a stern, imperious man, and he decides to assemble a crew, assemble a herd, and make the drive all the way to Montana. His best friend and a fellow Texas Ranger, Captain McCrae, is more easygoing. He's more loquacious. He goes along mainly for the adventure, and because he cannot imagine breaking up with Captain Call any more than Captain Call can imagine breaking up with him. So Captain McCrae goes along, but one of his main motivations is that Clara, the former love of his life, lives en route to Montana. The herd can go right by where she lives. So we'd get to meet her again. And that's it. This narrative bounces all around the place. It bounces to a totally secondary set of characters. It follows those characters and the bad guy for long stretches of time. But we don't meet Clara. It doesn't bounce to her until it's her time to appear, until our heroes are getting close to where she lives. And then we do. In the chapters that we're reading today, the narrative does show us her, and it shows us her world. And it's amazingly done. Just amazingly done. Any expectation that you had about her is exploded in the first few pages devoted to her world and her life in her world. She has a crippled husband. He's comatose. He's wasting away on the bed. She has 2 children. She runs a camp on her own and deals with people who are coming to make deals with her. She is not in any way relying on other men. And you can't really say that she likes her life, but she is the one thing that you might be expecting as the narrative builds, is that she will be a match for Gustus McCrae. She will be a match for him and Call. The narrative is full of characters who aren't. They're not bad, they're not contemptible, most of them, but there are large characters in this book, and there are smaller characters in this book. And one of the tragedies, for instance, of one of those smaller characters, July Johnson, is if they meet large demands, they can't meet them. One of the larger characters in this book is the bad guy, Blue Duck. The other is Call and McCrae, but there's also Clara. And we see that so clearly. It is so wonderfully, wonderfully done in the course of this book. And especially when our characters finally reach her spread. which is a kind of haven. She's offering it as a kind of haven. She can use the help. Uh, that is, for me, the heart and soul of this final part of the book. Although for most readers, the thing that's going to stick out is that Augustus McCrae dies. He gets shot in the leg with an arrow. It turns gangrenous, and he refuses to have his legs amputated. One leg is amputated while he's unconscious, but he's going to die if he doesn't have the other one amputated, and he refuses. He'd rather just die. Call gets the word and is barely able to get to his bedside before he does die, and upbraids him, saying, well, you didn't do any work anyway. You can keep doing no work even with no legs. At least you'll be around. But it's not what McCrae wants. But he does have a favor. He does want something, and it's a staggering thing. Just staggering. And one of the few things in Lonesome Dove that I don't think makes any sense. And that is that he wants Call to take his body all the way back to Texas for burial. As opposed to literally anything else, including the natural thing, which is to bury it on Clara's property. And Call agrees. So all this time that we have spent, this gigantic trek to get to Montana, is reversed. Call rides away from the herd with his friend's dead body. And there's an enormous Odysseus going home ordeal that is a lot of time is devoted to that in the end pages of this book. I've heard from a lot of people over the years. I've introduced this book to a lot of people over the years. A lot of people have said that something vital goes out of the book when Augustus McCrae dies. I've had a number of people over the years say they really wished that it had been someone else who died, and that Call and McCrae were still alive, both together at the end of the book. But I don't think that's what the book is about. I think this book it's about random chance. It's about the cruelty of random chance. It's also about found homes and thwarted desires. The book is absolutely full of thwarted desires. Don't get me wrong. I would have liked it if Call and McCrae had made it to Montana and settled down there as well. But that, I think, would have been a lesser book. There's something compelling about how unsatisfying the ending of this book is. I don't know quite how to quantify it. But there's something that works about it. I agree. There's an amazing magic that goes out of the book when that great character dies. But the herd does make it to Montana. There is a future opening up here. The goal at the beginning of the book was not wasted. It is achieved. It's just not achieved in a way that anyone connected wanted it to. And that's really going to conclude it for now. I mean, that is the end of this book. A lot of you are finishing up this week, and a lot of you are emailing me about this piecemeal, saying, either I've been trying to keep up with you. Matthew and I are doing about a quarter of the book every week. But I've also had a lot of people say, I was going to keep up with you week by week, but I couldn't stop reading. I just couldn't stop reading, so I finished. There you go. And I've been very gratified to hear from a number of people saying they are sure they are going to reread this. It was that good. It's that enjoyable. There are all sorts of marquee scenes that lend themselves to that. We've seen earlier scenes where the herd takes off from Texas. The scene where Augustus McCrae single-handedly rescues a character named Lorena from Blue Duck. There are some great natural scenes when the herd is bedeviled by a gigantic thunderstorm, lightning arcing through the sky instead of just hitting the ground, lightning bluing up the horns of the cattle. Incredible stuff. That McMurtry spends a good deal of self-indulgent space on because it is amazing and because it largely can't be captured on film. Which is something that McMurtry always has in his mind, I think. I think it runs throughout this book, is what can I give you that you can't film? The marquee scene along those lines here being a fight between two animals, between a gigantic bull that is the master of the whole herd and a grizzly bear. Right? A little ham-handed in the symbolism, the bull being a symbol of advancing civilization coming into this wilderness area, and the bear being a symbol of the natural world that is being displaced. And the fight is savage. Again, Larry McMurtry gives it all the time in the world, all the time that it needs. And the bull doesn't lose. The bull is battered, but it doesn't lose, and the herd is not going to turn back. That is a little bit unrealistic, but but it has been known to happen. Grizzly bears have been known to run from adult bull mooses. It's about the same kind of power that we're talking about here. So, but that, I don't imagine that you could film a scene like that, and that works really well. I would argue that there's a large number of very sensitive little scenes involving Clara and her comatose husband that I would be hard for me to imagine filming those scenes in a way that has the power that they have in this book. This novel was famously filmed, a miniseries for TV, and Angelica Houston does an incredible job as Clara. So, and I don't put anything past her. She might be able to do that, but those scenes are wonderful. There's, of course, another marquee scene. Speaking of that miniseries, is by the only thing that anybody remembers. No, I shouldn't say that. But it's everybody's favorite bit from that miniseries. There's a scene where all through the book, our heroes have been shadowed by an army platoon, a U.S. Army platoon. They're in the area. They're in the territory. They're hunting for a renegade Indian tribe. And there's a wonderful tense scene much earlier in the novel, where they confer on horseback with Call and McCrae. In a clear vying for power, these army guys want to commandeer the herd and all the horses for the U.S. government. And they don't. That scene is wonderful for instance, in how much isn't said, how much is heavily implied. It's pretty clear to everyone that if guns are drawn and people start killing each other, Call and McCrae are going to account for a lot more than just two of those army people. It would be a disaster. And they're former Texas Rangers, so it would be a disaster on every front. But that scene is made, the tension in that scene is made explicit in the pages that we're reading today, when a surly scout for that army detachment attacks Newt and in a city street, just starts beating him in the city street. And when Call sees it, he loses control of his mind, hops on the nearest horse, rides it right into the horse that the scout is on, knocks them both over, and proceeds to dismantle the scout almost fatally. He has to be pulled away by Augustus McCrae, who has to lasso him and pull him away. Call is in a blood frenzy. He will kill anyone around him. The interesting thing about that scene that is very, very subtle. It's not. There's no great weight placed on it at all. Throughout this book, we've been told that Call has a particular horse, the Hell Bitch, who is gigantic and fierce and won't let anyone else handle her at all. No one else can handle this horse. And when Augustus rides to his friend's defense to save his friend from killing someone in front of the whole town, he mounts that horse. And it's what I'm saying. There are large characters in this book, and there are small characters, and the large characters can do almost anything. It's absolutely inhuman, unbelievable in any way that one man could bring a corpse all the way from Montana to southern Texas. Call does it because he is one of the larger-than-life characters in this book. Any of those larger-than-life characters can do amazing things. Clara, for instance, is in the middle of Indian territory. She's in the middle of the wilderness. But she has this kind of a Galadriel ability to create a haven all around her, without a stockade fence, without a whole cadre of armed men, and it works. So, there are little elements like that I'm not sure could be completely done, translated into film. I am always endlessly happy that no one has tried to make a movie of this book. I'm always endlessly happy that Netflix has not pushed $1 billion into the face of Larry McMurtry's literary estate in order to make some dumb series about it. I'm glad that it exists only in a miniseries that was terrifically done. And as this book that all of you are encountering here for June on the Range. Very nice that a lot of you are reading the best Western ever written for the first Western BookTube event. There's a symmetry there that I really like. But anyway, that is Lonesome Dove. We're wrapping it up for now. Matthew and I, sometime soon, will make our eagerly awaited announcement video for what we're reading in August. It's a goodie. You're going to like it, and so is he. One of the charms here, it doesn't always happen, one of the charms for me with the Mayberry Book Club is to introduce Matthew to things. But we'll make our announcement video soon. And in the meantime, that was Lonesome Dove. If you're reading along, you have a week to go still to finish the book. I would love to hear whether or not, I'm hearing a lot already from a lot of you who are reading this for the first time. But I'd love to hear from more people. If you are, if you're rereading it, I'd love to. Feel free to leave a comment or send me an email. Just with emails, you have to be extra patient because my world is in turmoil. It is in complete turmoil. My house is being ripped apart. Frida and I don't have anywhere else to go, so we're stuck here making the best of this construction. So it's throwing my response times, which are never all that great anyway, into chaos. Just so long as you're careful with that. So there you go. That is Lonesome Dove. That is the Mayberry Book Club for June. We will reconvene for next weekend. Thank you, BookTube.